The U.S. economy added fewer jobs than expected in what many economists are calling a disappointing November employment report. The country added just 210,000 jobs last month. That is less than half of what economists initially projected. However, the unemployment rate fell to its lowest point since the start of the pandemic. President Biden says it's a sign that Americans are getting back to work.
Our economy is markedly stronger than it was a year ago. And today, the incredible news that our unemployment rate has fallen to 4.2%. At this point in the year, we're looking at the sharpest one-year decline in unemployment ever. Simply put, America is back to work, and our jobs recovery is going very strong.
Lori Bettinger joins us now for more on the November jobs numbers. She is the former director of the Troubled Asset Relief Program during the Obama administration and the current co-president of BancAlliance. Lori, welcome. So what does the November jobs report tell us about the state of the U.S. economy?
Thanks, Elaine. To me, I think this is a promising report. It's interesting, every week new data comes out and you can often see something that's a little positive, maybe something that feels like, could that possibly be negative? How do I want to look at the data this week? But overall, I think we're just continuing to see improvement in the job market. And even on these two figures that you've been discussing, new jobs added, 210,000. Yes, it was a lower number than many economists were predicting, but still, job growth. And then on the other hand, you see the unemployment rate, which is lower, which means better than a lot of people were expecting. And, I think a couple of weeks ago, we saw that the jobless claims were the lowest they'd been in something like 50 some years. And I think we just continue to see steady improvement. It doesn't mean it's always going in exactly the same direction. Maybe some weeks you're going to see some improvement. The next week, maybe there's going to be a little bit of pullback. But overall, I continue to think that the job market is in pretty decent shape. Of course, there's some always a little few twists and turns along the way, but seems positive so far.
Yeah, help us understand this a bit further. So unemployment is at its lowest rate since the start of the pandemic, and labor force participation is the highest it's been in that same period. But how do you explain these weak job gains in November?
So it's a great question. And also, I think we still have to understand, even though labor participation is still going up, there are still roughly 3 million fewer participants in that labor market, 3 million fewer workers than there were at the start of the pandemic. So when you look at these two numbers, they come from different places. The unemployment figure, that 4.2%, that comes from a survey of consumers, of households, versus the jobs report comes from talking to employers. And they have different perspectives. There's sort of different groups of people you're asking. I think sometimes you'll see a phenomenon show up in one measure, but not the other. For example, in the household reports, you're going to capture people that might have less traditional forms of employment. They might be self-employed. They might be a maker that, is coming up with a new product and selling it through markets, that they're having for the holidays, or Etsy. And those people are employed, but they're not going to show up in that jobs number that comes from surveying sort of more formal, traditional employers.
Is it normal to see such conflicting data from the business and household surveys?
I don't know if anything's normal right now. It still feels like there's this disruption. And, I think no matter what, if you see a trend, everyone's always saying, what's next? What's around the corner? What could stop this trend or reverse it? I mean, we saw that with Delta this summer. Who knows if we're going to see it with this new variant? But I think that we've seen these dislocations before, and I don't think it's an immediate cause for concern. I think part of it just goes to how challenging this job market has been since the onset of COVID, and how it's sometimes been really difficult to quantify the different effects that we know are there, but it's really hard to say, why are people sitting out this market? Are they scared of getting sick? Is it childcare? You can see survey after survey, but at the end of the day, I don't think anyone knows exactly what is driving every person, that make up these different calculations.
Well, these numbers are subject to 2 subsequent revisions. Significant changes were made to the initial jobs numbers over the last 6 months. Do you expect to see updates to this report once it is revised?
I wouldn't be surprised to see continual updates. I mean, the good news is that the most recent updates were in a positive direction, so that was nice to see. But, there's just everything's so fluid. I think, as these surveys continue to get enhanced, I wouldn't be surprised to see additional revisions, and hopefully, again, they're in a positive direction.
So when you take a look more closely, where did we see the most job growth in November?
Well, I think we saw it across, a number of sectors. And the sector that, I think I tend to keep a close eye on, as do a lot of people, sort of what's happening with hospitality, travel, leisure. That was certainly an area that was really hit this summer with the sort of slowdown associated with Delta. And I think there's been a lot of uptick in that in retail and manufacturing as everyone gets ready for what is looking like a really busy holiday season. So, but then the question is sort of, can we continue those gains into December? Do any parts of the economy start to slow down? But I would expect, in December, we're going to continue to see a lot of strength, particularly in retail.
All right, Lori Bettinger. Lori, thank you very much.
Thank you.